all things conceivable, a surrogacy podcast with Nazca Fontes.
All right, listeners, welcome to today's episode, and we are going to be talking about something really interesting. And while it might seem rather niche on the surface, it's actually a topic that affects all women who have given birth, and that is lactation. When it comes to pregnancy and postpartum recovery, we really believe at Conceivabilities that the fourth trimester is something that we can't talk enough about. We've made it our mission at Conceivabilities to include fourth trimester support for all of our surrogates through our all-in compensation and care package, and that's in order to ensure a full and healthy recovery after childbirth. And many of our surrogates do move on to pump milk for their intended family. Many of them donate their breast milk to milk banks, and it's really part of their journey. But really, for all lactating women embarking on their breastfeeding or pumping journey, we feel you can never have too much support. And today we're chatting with someone who feels just as passionately about the topic, mompreneur Nikki Bredeson, founder of Cookies Then Milk. And what Cookies Then Milk is, it's a lactation cookie company that helps lactating women who need a little extra help with their milk supply. And she's also been a surrogate twice. So she's well-informed and very knowledgeable about the subject. And I believe that both of us love lifting up women who are empowering and helping each other do oftentimes what we view as the impossible. So Nikki, welcome today. And I'm so excited to be talking about this topic with you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
So first of all, I want to hear, and our listeners want to hear just a little bit more on the surface. We'll do a deep dive, but just what does Cookies Then Milk do in a nutshell?
Sure. So lactation cookies, they're basically just a delicious way to include the common galactagogues like oats, flaxseed, brewer's yeast into your diet on their own. They're not really delicious ingredients. So these galactagogues in these cookies work by increasing the prolactin in your body, and that's the hormone that controls milk production. So it's really just a tool to help women with, the work that they're already doing with frequent and consistent pumping. Not a magic tool, but something that they can use as an additional support.
So let's start by that's just fascinating. I have so many questions and, being in this field for so long, I'm still just amazed by this product that you've developed. It's incredible. But let's start a little bit with your background first. How, leading up to the development of Cookies Then Milk, tell us a little bit about your family and about you, and then we'll talk about the motivation for starting your product.
Okay, sure. So I'm actually in a really neat season of life right now. My kids are 22, 14, 13, and so I'm a ways away from, having babies and doing surrogacy and pumping, but it's a really beautiful thing to watch my kids, start to come into their own. And so I'm kind of shifting now, focusing on being a mentor to other women, building this company so that it has an impact on families, and basically just taking all the things that I've learned over the last, 13 years now on this journey and putting them into practice and modeling them for my own kids as we talk about, what is your impact going to be on the world?
And not only do you have your three beautiful children, you are actually a surrogate twice. Mm-hmm. What inspired you to become a surrogate and help build families?
That story goes way back, actually. There was a history of infertility in my family. And when I realized that that wasn't going to be a challenge for me, I felt almost a responsibility to take that and use that to help other families. And so as I started to get older, completed my own family, I started looking around and realized there's such a need and there's such a beautiful experience that can be had by helping couples grow their family. And I really just wanted to give back. I really just wanted to share that experience.
And did you happen to pump for your intended parents?
I did. I pumped after both journeys. My surrogacies were pretty close back to back, and so I pumped shorter for the first one, but I actually ended up pumping for just under 3 years the second go round.
Wow. 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 3 years of pumping.
Yeah.
I think that wins the prize as far as I've ever encountered in terms of surrogates pumping. That's an incredible duration. Well done, Nikki. Well, that leads us right to why we're here and what we're talking about today, all things lactation. Now, I know you can't share too much, but I am excited to hear that you pitched Cookies Then Milk on Shark Tank. Is that true?
It is, yeah.
Did you ever think you'd get that opportunity? Amazing.
Oh, my goodness, not at all. Cookies and milk, was just a hobby when I first started. I was trying to address my own supply issues, share a little love with my mom friends. Never, ever imagined that we would be where we are today.
And so what motivated you to start this company? Like, tell us a little bit about the challenges that you experienced with lactation and why you felt there was this, need in the marketplace.
Yeah. So I didn't have a lot of experience or education or really an understanding of, what to expect, what it would be like. I was very young when I had my first. And so I kind of had to just piece things together and figure things out on my own, which is, part of where the cookies originally came from, even before the company was started. And as I was sharing my cookies with friends and neighbors and the other women in my breastfeeding group at the local hospital, I realized that this was basically, this untouched area where we had this support that we could be having, but it wasn't readily available. It wasn't something that was easy to access. And so just kind of me being who I am, I said, let me just see what I can do with this. And it just kind of rolled from there. It just kind of grew.
So you were making cookies just for your own personal network, for yourself, for your friends, and is that correct? You were making these cookies before you ever had the idea of turning them into a product?
Absolutely. It wasn't really my intention to create any kind of a company. It was just, I had started doing some research. I started learning about galactagogues and, I was in college at the time. And so for me, that was just part of the process as a college kid. We're researching everything and I'm learning about this and I'm kind of doing one of those, look over your shoulder double takes like, why doesn't anyone know about this? And yeah, it just became something that I was really interested in. Funny story, I was taking a college class for entrepreneurship and we had to do a project where we had to create like a mock business. And so I was like, well, let me just take this little cookie business and, I'm already doing this in my spare time. And before I know it, I'm entering, business plan competitions and I'm pitching investors. And all of a sudden, we're just kind of winning these competitions and growing as a business. And it just took off.
So inspirational. I love this. But can you've used this term a couple times already in our conversation, and I think our listeners would like to hear a little bit more. Galactagogues. What exactly is a galactagogue?
Yeah, so a galactagogue is really it's either a food or an herb that has some research behind it that shows that it can impact your hormone levels. And then those hormone levels are what drive lactation. And so, for example, there's oatmeal, there's flaxseed, there's brewer's yeast, there's more herbal supplements that have been studied a lot longer than just foods. And they show that when you can kind of tell your body, hey, our prolactin levels are higher, that must mean we need more milk. And so combined with addressing the milk, right, expressing the milk, they kind of work in tandem to keep those levels up. And then as women are expressing that milk, it's telling the body, okay, let's go. We need more. And so it is that supply and demand cycle. And the galactagogues are there as sort of like a booster.
Perfect explanation. I love that. So a galactagogue helps that supply and demand cycle. So the end result, really, what everybody's after is higher milk production. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah, that's what we're all after.
That's what we're all after. Now, when it comes to, you say women aren't always prepared for what to expect when it comes to lactation, and I could not agree more. So we've got lactation, we've got breastfeeding, and then we have pumping. what role, in your point of view, does breastfeeding or pumping play in what we've described as fourth trimester recovery? And just to kind of underscore fourth trimester, that's, the trimester after giving birth where a woman is recovering from childbearing. She's trying to get her, emotional and physical health back up to speed. And she's also either, breastfeeding or pumping. So what role does breastfeeding or pumping play in that recovery?
Yeah, so I think it's important, first of all, to understand and remember that you're not going to give birth and then pop up the next day and be exactly where you were 9 months ago. It is called the fourth trimester because it is an extension, right, of that pregnancy, of that experience, of that journey, and it takes a toll on the body. And now we're asking the body to make milk pretty much around the clock for the first pretty good few weeks, losing out on sleep and being, so emotional. Personally, I was pretty hypersensitive at the time. And in addition to that, there is this expectation of producing a certain amount of milk, and that can be extremely stressful. I know for me personally, when I started my first breastfeeding journey, there wasn't that much support. There wasn't that much education to help me prepare. And so I think really just the most important thing to know is that you can do it, but it will have challenges and it's okay to take it slow. It's okay to be kind to yourself, and it's okay to ignore all of those expectations of what you should be doing, how much you should be pumping, and just listening to your body, being consistent, and being kind to yourself.
So, I'm gathering that, before you had your first child, your son 22 years ago, you really didn't have any expectations or know what to expect when it came to breastfeeding and really didn't feel prepared for your breastfeeding journey. What did you wish you knew before all that?
Oh, goodness. A lot. You know, when we know better, we do better. And so I really do try to give myself grace, give my 18-year-old self grace for how that went about. I wish I had known that breastfeeding and pumping doesn't just happen. You actually have to put in the work. So you have to stay on a schedule. You have to get your flange sizes checked. A lot of women still aren't aware of the importance of that. You have to get enough calories, so on. And so I think the most important thing I wish I had known was that you have to be informed and you have to be prepared, because you're not going to just deliver a baby and instantly know how to maintain a milk supply. Again, like I said, you can do it, but it's important to have support and it's important to be educated.
Okay, you used another term that I think our listeners are probably saying, huh? I didn't quite get that. Phalange,
hmm
right?
Yeah.
And the sizing. Can you describe or explain a little bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So being unaware of the different flange sizes was a struggle for multiple journeys for me. It wasn't actually until my fifth journey that I was able to speak with a sizing specialist and learn about the different sizes. So the pumps that we buy come with either a 24 or a 25 standard size flange. And studies show that most women.
And Nikki, what is a flange?
Oh, yeah, I'm so sorry. So the flange is the cup, the shield, if you will, that you attach to the breast. And then the base of that there's an adapter that holds the bottle. And so essentially it is the piece that attaches to the body that pulls the milk and allows it to drop into the bottle. So it's that little cup.
Got
And
it.
yeah, and the standard size is much larger than what the majority of women need. I believe right now the average size is like a 17 millimeter, and it comes with a 24 or a 25. So for me, I was experiencing pain. I was experiencing bruising, damage, and I was feeling like I had quote unquote low supply. But the truth is that I just didn't have the right size. So the phalange wasn't efficiently removing milk.
So, what's so interesting in hearing, you're so knowledgeable and you have a lot of experience kind of running the spectrum between, having baby at the age of 18 and not being prepared at all to, running this company now that is all about the support of lactating women. But in between, there's all of this struggle, right? There's lots and lots of struggle. And I would imagine that struggle is often universal among women who are trying to do their level best while also being sort of, led to believe that if they aren't successful with their lactation, that they're failing somehow as a mother. Do you think that, to your point about giving one grace, do you think that there's a happy medium where women can do their level best? Maybe they're not going to be perfect at breastfeeding or lactation. Maybe they need to supplement a different way, and that's okay? Or should they still try, strive to be, fully breastfeeding or fully pumping all of the time? What are your opinions about that?
Yeah, I appreciate that question because it's definitely universal. In my experience with Cookies Then Milk and with our online community that has, almost 20,000 women in it, I'm seeing the same things over and over. And women really are attaching their worth and their value to the number of ounces that they're seeing in the bottle, which is heartbreaking because we are all doing our best and it's a really, really hard job. And there is no such thing, in my opinion, as failing at it. Every drop of breast milk has nutrients and antibodies. And so whether a baby is getting an ounce of breast milk a day or 30 ounces of breast milk a day, it's still this incredible gift that's really just amazing for their little growing bodies. I think what I would say to women is that going into it blind, there are going to be struggles. Going into it without support, there are going to be struggles, but there are different factors that all come together to create a successful breastfeeding journey. And when you take the time to look at each one of those factors, you really can put them together to have what is a successful journey. And it's honestly not what you think it is. We see these Facebook posts or social media posts where women have deep freezers full of thousands of ounces of milk. And that, in my opinion, is unrealistic. And it sets sort of it sets an unrealistic expectation for women because that's not how much you need to have. Babies need, about 24 to 30 ounces a day, and they really only need to have stashes in their freezer for, say, one day at a time. But social media is telling us we need to have 1,000 ounces to be good enough. And honestly, that's just not the case. There are ways that we can increase supply, and if a family chooses that it's best for them to supplement, to bring formula into that journey, and that's what is helping keep it keep us mentally and physically healthy by not pushing ourselves too hard to an unrealistic goal. I think ultimately that's what's best.
And speaking to, the difference and, kind of your learning curve over the period of time from, not knowing anything and not getting the support with your first child, fast forward to your daughter, in any of those experiences, first, let's talk about potential regret. Do you have any regrets about the way you approached feeding for your babies?
With my oldest son, we had a very casual relationship with breastfeeding. It was, I nursed him if I felt like it. I gave formula if it was more convenient. At the time, I didn't have any idea that would cut our journey short because, again, I wasn't creating that supply and demand cycle. And so when we stopped breastfeeding around 6 months, I did start to have a little guilt. He had some health issues here and there, but at the time I didn't have any idea how important breast milk was when it came to, antibodies and nutrients and things like that. So I could say yes, but again, I did the best I could with what I had. And so honestly, I'm really just proud of myself for sticking with it as long as I did and learning and growing from that experience.
And then, let's fast forward a little bit. Did you prepare differently for breastfeeding your subsequent children?
I did with my daughter. So I had about 7 years after my son before my daughter was born. And I spent a lot of that educating myself on the whole thing. I wanted to avoid a C-section with her birth, and I did end up having a natural VBAC, a vaginal birth after cesarean. And I did have plans to have a breastfeeding journey that would last at least a year, all of those check marks that we try to hit when we're preparing for a baby. And so I have this plan of like, I'm going to do this. And that was really motivating for me, finding a group of other women that were going to be breastfeeding, finding that support. It was a big game changer for me the second time around.
And how instrumental do you think using a pump was? Do you think once you learned about pumping, breast pump, using a breast pump to pump milk, that was a game changer for you?
Absolutely. You're probably going to laugh because it was not until my fourth journey that I really understood what a pump was and how to use it. I don't know if it's me or if a lot of women feel this way, but they are somewhat complicated, especially when you don't know about flange sizing and, which pump is better than the other pumps. Once I figured out how to use a pump, how to use it as a tool, it became a big game changer because you can schedule your times. I'm going to sit down and pump for this long. It's different than latching where baby can pop off and look around and you have to kind of convince them and calm them. The pump is like, okay, we're going to sit, we're going to pump, we're going to remove milk. And that's really great for training the body to create a certain amount of milk on a cycle.
So Nikki, we've talked about, this evolution that you've gone through over, 2 decades of lactating and the education and the awareness and bringing pumps into it. But let's talk about that time when you first had a lactation cookie after consuming, the first package. Tell me what that was like and the effects that it had on your body.
Oh my goodness. Well, to be honest, the very first lactation recipe that I used was slightly horrifying. The cookie was so dry and so bitter. And I just thought to myself, I got to just choke this puppy down. And this is what, they say is going to work. And it took a couple weeks. I'm pretty sure a couple pounds, but it did start to work. And really, truly, I started to just kind of relax and just kind of ease into my journey because I was seeing the effects and I was seeing that I had this tool to help me with my supply. It was like a hug. It was like a friend, to say, we can do this together.
And tell me about, or let's, share with our listeners the evolution of that first recipe that you used and kind of the recipe that you use today. Without giving away any, secrets, of course, but I'd love to hear how you evolved the cookie so that it's, it's something that's tasty. It's something that women want to eat, and how popular it might be with your community.
Yeah, I knew right away that the cookie recipe could very easily be tweaked. And I knew that I could create something delicious that had the right amount of galactagogues in it, but also that you didn't really even know they were there. And that's the recipe that we've perfected today. And then in addition to that, we have really evolved as a company and expanded beyond just cookies because there are multiple challenges that women face on their breastfeeding journey. And it's not just the cookies address one of those issues, but then there are also other issues like you need electrolytes, you need to be hydrated. Some women deal with getting clogged ducts, and that was huge for me. I had constant clogged ducts. And so we've expanded to create multiple products that address each and every one of those challenges that women face during their journey. And it's really neat to be in our community online to see women say, I came for the cookies, but my new favorite product is Release because I get these clogged ducts or used to get these clogged ducts constantly. Or we have other women who say, my favorite product is the electrolyte drink mix because I was wasting all of this money on sports drinks thinking that they had enough electrolytes or the specific electrolytes that breastfeeding women need, and they didn't. And so what I really, really love about how far we've come is that we're not just, saying, here, eat this cookie and everything will be fixed. We're saying, what do you need? What is your struggle? What is your pain point on your journey? And here is how we can address it.
And what are some of the other things that women can do to optimize their supply? Like, what are the hallmarks? If you were to give, 4 good pieces of advice to optimize their supply, what would they be?
Well, most importantly, milk supply is supply and demand. And so the most important thing is to latch or pump frequently and consistently. Additionally, I would say flange sizing for all of us pumping women. It's important to have flange sizing checked by a specialist. So, lactation consultants, unfortunately, are still not all trained in flange sizing. So, a lot of women get a size at the hospital that actually is not her correct size. And then they go home, they assume their supply is pretty low, but it isn't. It's just that incorrect size is not allowing them to remove milk efficiently. Additionally, nutrients really do matter. You absolutely do not have to eat perfectly when you're breastfeeding, because I know those cravings are real, but it is important to get extra calories. It takes calories to make calories, I like to tell moms. And so it's important to get extra calories. And then the fourth thing I would say is going back to those electrolytes. There is this common theme that you hear with breastfeeding women that you have to drink gallons and gallons of water. And it's important to drink to thirst. It's important to stay hydrated. But when we're drinking a ton of water, what we're doing is we're washing out our body's natural electrolytes. And those electrolytes need to be replaced. So potassium, magnesium, sodium. And if you flip around one of those sports drink bottles, you'll see on the back, they do not actually contain the daily values that breastfeeding women need. And so it's important to look for or come to us for those specific supplements that will address that need. And they all work together to help optimize supply.
And your online community, I think you said that it's nearly 20,000 strong. Is that right?
Yeah, it is.
And this is a community, who can love and support each other through the journey, the lactation journey. So aside from increasing supply, does this community often surface other challenges that lactating women face that maybe aren't connected to lactation per se? And how does this community help them with those other challenges?
Absolutely. It absolutely does. It has grown into, just like you said, a community that helps women on every step of their parenting journey or even their, self journey. We talk a lot about self-love and like I said earlier, taking it slow and giving yourself grace in the community. To be totally honest, I started the community for myself. I had just completed my second surrogacy journey. It was COVID. I was pumping to donate and I just felt extremely alone. And it turns out I hopped online and found hundreds of other women who were feeling exactly the same way. And so, basically overnight, we went from 10 to 100 to 10,000 and so on of women that were saying, I just want to do best for baby. I just want to be able to, not feel like I'm struggling so much. And then in addition to, we're all trying to navigate the pandemic. And so that brought our community so very close together. And so we really try to focus on education. We focus on support. It is not a place where it'll be like, here's cookies and you'll be fine. It's real one-on-one support, getting to the root of why we're struggling, offering each other advice, and just a place where you can feel safe to ask questions, to learn, to grow, and to really just thrive.
I love that. A place to feel safe, because a lot of women do feel insecure. Maybe they feel shame when it comes to their challenges with lactation. And, at Conceivabilities in particular, we are so focused and committed to empowering women to find their purpose and to create meaningful change in their own communities and beyond. And, one of the ways that we did that during the pandemic was in response to the formula shortage. And so many women were then turning to milk banks to supplement the supply, because at the end of the day, they need to feed their children. And however that looks, right? They need to feed their children. And so we thought that through our own network of surrogates that we could help mitigate that shortage and really inspire other women to donate. And really, I have to say, so far, thousands of incredibly generous and giving women have donated over 2 million ounces of breast milk. And in large part because of you and your support and sharing the Milk Bank Challenge with your community. So why was it important for you to kind of help partner to inspire other women to donate their oversupply?
Yeah, that's really meaningful to hear. Thank you. It's been really important to me to empower other women to donate because I saw firsthand how important it is for families to feel like they're doing the absolute best they can by their babies. After my second surrogacy, I wasn't even planning to pump actually, but it was the height of COVID. My belly buddy was born 7 weeks early. And so when his dad came to me and just genuinely was like, please, would you do this for us? It was this huge reminder for me that it's an absolute miracle and a gift to be able to make this perfect food for babies. And I'll be the first to tell you an oversupply is not easy to manage. It comes with a whole other set of challenges compared to what people call low supply. But it is just this small way that we can make a huge impact on other families. And every baby deserves a chance to have breast milk, but not all families are able to make it on their own. And so donating is a way that pumping women can give back to our community of parents. And we all want the same thing. We all want the best for our babies. And I think that's where we can step in and support each other.
Well, it's been an absolute privilege to get to know you, to have your support with this Milk Bank Challenge, to raise awareness about lactation and breastfeeding and pumping and, just ways that we can nourish babies so that they can thrive and be the healthiest and happiest they can be. I want to ask you, Nikki, what has been the most rewarding part of owning your own company that actually helps lactating women and inspires something in you, right? That's a passion. What's been so rewarding for you?
The part that's been the most rewarding has actually been a bit of a surprise to me. It's been the people that I've been able to meet and the relationships that I've created. We've had moms that are starting journeys with their own babies. We've had surrogates who are pumping to donate. I've even met moms who come to our company because they're inducing lactation for children through adoption. And so I've had this amazing privilege of celebrating these journeys with women and being the one that they trust to help them, through the low times, through the tough times. And as someone who felt so very isolated and alone during my earlier breastfeeding journeys, it has been so fulfilling to make sure that the women in our community don't have to experience that.
Thank you for that. Wow. I wish you were around 22 years ago when I had my first baby too, because you're right. There is that feeling of isolation, being alone, and there's not a lot of resources, or there wasn't back then. And there's so many now, and cookies and milk is at the top of the heap. So Nikki, thank you so much for sharing your story, your journey, for being candid about your struggles, and for being such an incredible entrepreneur to bring a wonderful product to market to help other women and empower them to be, all they can be on behalf of their babies. So thank you for joining me today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. And thank you so much for the opportunity to work with Conceivabilities. I really enjoy sharing my experiences and inspiring other women to give surrogacy a look. Two of my very best friends, one just completed a journey and one is just starting a journey. And so it's a real privilege that even though I'm finished with my own journeys, to be able to inspire others to start theirs.
I love it. Thank you, Nikki. Well, listeners, that was really something unique and different and super helpful in so many ways. And I think my biggest takeaway, my biggest aha moment from that conversation with Nikki is community, community, community. Oftentimes when we feel most alone or uncertain of ourselves or isolated, we fail to recognize that we are not alone. And in fact, there are communities out there where we can seek out and get the support and education that we need. And, to my comment that 22 years ago when I had my first son, I wish I had access to a community like Nikki's. And so if you're out there and whatever it is that you're feeling challenged with in the moment, we live in a day and age where there are resources. There are an abundance of them if we just know where to look. So turn over those rocks and look underneath, and I guarantee you'll find some like-minded people that will offer you the community that you need when you need it most. So listeners, thank you for joining me today on All Things Conceivable. And until next time, have a great day.
At Conceivabilities, we believe that everyone who wants to become a parent can. Our agency has helped build thousands of families for nearly 25 years. Whether you are an intended parent ready to fulfill your family destiny, a surrogate answering your calling, or an egg donor wanting to expand what's possible in your life, we are your people. See how matching matters. Learn more by joining our Surrogacy Learning Center community at surrogacylearningcenter.conceivabilities.com.